So Sarah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So now you have never held elected office before. So what qualifies you to run for Congress? Why are you running for Congress?
Well, like many women around the country, I never thought I would run for office, actually. But I really feel like our country is in a critical moment, and we don't have time for the same politicians with the same ideas, and we don't have time to wait our turn anymore. I have always known that I was the beneficiary of an unfair system, and from an early age I knew it was my responsibility to use those advantages and use those opportunities to make things fairer and to make sure that everyone had access to opportunity, and that's what led me into a career of public service. I joined the Obama State Department because I believed in President Obama's message that we didn't have to wait for change and that we didn't have to settle for the way that things had always been done. I served as a foreign policy advisor to Hillary Clinton during the presidential campaign. I've worked at UNICEF using technology to better serve vulnerable children. I was the CEO of an international education nonprofit that was working to advocate for equitable access for every school around the world. And I think if we're going to be able to solve our problems, and if we're going to be able to actually make change, then we need to change who we send to Congress, and we need a new approach.
So let's talk about some of the issues. Immigration.
Yes.
Where do you stand on DACA and providing a replacement for DACA, the policy that would allow a path to citizenship for children brought here illegally as children?
I believe that we need to pass a Clean Dream Act, and we need to pass it now. I've talked to voters throughout our district, and whether or not they identify as Democrat or Republican, everyone agrees that these young people who were made a promise that if they came forward and gave the government their information in order to have a pathway, that they should be able to have that pathway to stay here. I believe we need a comprehensive approach to immigration reform in this country. We need a pathway to citizenship. We need to prioritize keeping families together. We do need to make sure that companies can get the workers that they need, but also that they're not abusing the system to outsource jobs. And I think that there's a way to do all of that and a way to make compromise. You know, if you look at the DREAM Act, we actually have the votes to be able to pass it. It's just that Republican leadership won't even let it come to the floor for a vote. And that, to me, is abhorrent because these young people's lives are upended for nothing more than a political game.
So what's your position on the wall and the funding that President Trump is asking for to expand it?
I don't think building a wall makes any sense. It's not going to make us safer. It's not a good use of our resources. I do think that there are some new technologies we can bring to the border that will make it easier and faster to cross and transit the border, which will actually also be good for our environment because we won't have cars idling there at the border for 4 hours at a time. But I don't think a wall makes any sense at all.
There's a big debate about gun control, gun regulation in
Yes.
this country. And I don't know what kind of specific measures that you would pursue that you think might actually pass.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have been so heartened to see the young people really taking a stand and leading the way. I really believe that it's because of them that this time will be different, and that on an issue that has felt intractable for so long, we'll really be able to make progress and pass common sense gun reform. And one of the things I've been so heartened to see is that these young people know that they need to translate that activism and energy into political change. And we actually had a group of high school students who reached out to me after the March for Our Lives because they wanted to meet with me to talk about what they could do to take that energy and excitement and really turn it into concrete political change. So what do I think common sense gun reform looks like? I think we need to ban assault weapons and all military grade weapons from our streets. We need to make sure that anyone who's buying a gun is getting a background check and closing the loopholes. We need to be able to hold gun stores liable, and we need to be able to study gun violence as a public health threat.
You are very young, not yet 30, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why is it you think that youth is actually an advantage for somebody running for Congress?
Well, it's true that I am young. I would actually be the youngest woman that we've ever elected to Congress. We've never had a woman in their 20s in Congress, but we've had hundreds of people my age or younger serving in Congress. They just all happen to be men. I think this year voters are looking at a broken Washington and they want something different. They want a new approach, and they want someone who will bring a fresh energy and isn't beholden to the old ways of thinking and the old ways of doing things. And we've seen an incredible amount of energy and excitement, particularly among young people and women, for our campaign.
Well, Sara Jacobs, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.